G'day guys, welcome back to another video where today we're doing the podcast again with Josh. Say hello.
Hello everybody, and the topic for this podcast is the trade period from 2019, the most recent one, and I'll get Kizza to start us off.
Thanks Josh. So I'm going to start us off with Brad Hill and Dan Butler, both going to St Kilda. Very good players, both of them. And what's your view on this, Josh?
Well, Brad Hill is probably in Brownlow contention, and Dan Butler's got a lot of footy ahead of him. Very young, talented, fast player. So two very great players for St Kilda to get. And yeah, St Kilda are one of the teams that came on top in this draft.
For sure.
But yeah, I'll move on to
Brandon Ellis, the best player ever made.
and Hugh Greenwood, both going to the Gold Coast Suns. Brandon Ellis coming from Richmond, Hugh Greenwood coming from Adelaide. But those two, they couldn't really get a game at their own side, in and out of the A's, going into the two sometimes. But yeah, it was probably good for Richmond and Adelaide to get rid of them. But it is good for Gold Coast to get them. It's not going to win them the premiership, but it is going to improve their team. So yeah, what's your view on that, Kiz?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me. They're both half-decent players. Very good for Gold Coast, I reckon they'll be. So next I have got Zach Jones from Sydney going to St Kilda, as well as Paddy Ryder from Port going to St Kilda. Both of them are very good players. Still got a couple of years in them, I reckon. Paddy Ryder with a lot of experience. What's your view on this, Josh?
Well, Zach Jones actually has a fair bit of experience as well, and as you said, they've got a couple more years in them.
Yep.
I don't think Sydney and Port Adelaide agreed that they had a couple more years in them, so they gave them away. But yeah, again, great gets for St Kilda, and yeah, they're doing well in this trade period. And the two players I've got now are Cam Ellis-Yolmen and Callum Archie, both going to the Brisbane Lions. Ellis-Yolmen coming from Adelaide, Archie coming from Gold Coast. Now, Ellis-Yolmen couldn't get a game at Adelaide, so how is he going to get a game at Brisbane? Shocking trade, Brisbane. The worst trade in the trade period. Just as worse as Louis Taylor going to Sydney, but we won't talk about that one. And Callum Archie, he's a nice, sneaky, small forward. If you think about it, just as good as Eddie Betts or his new teammate, Charlie Cameron. So, yeah, what's your opinion about that, Kiz?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I reckon a bit of a waste Yeoman was going to Brisbane. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. But next is, I believe, Dougal Howard going to St Kilda. Another St Kilda going to St Kilda. It's just unreal. They're just winners in this trade period. From Port Adelaide, of course, very good player. And also Josh Jenkins from Adelaide to Geelong. So, very good players. Them, what's your view on this, Josh?
Well, Josh Jenkins, he's an overrated and underrated player at some times. We saw he kicked 4 goals against Richmond last year. And yeah, but sometimes he didn't get to play a game for Adelaide. So Josh Jenkins is a bit of an iffy one. I reckon Geelong will use him to his full advantage. And yeah, so there was some great gets there. Dougal Howard, a very underrated young player, got a lot of footy ahead of him. And now two players I have now are Sam Jacobs, going to GWS from Adelaide. It's a great get for GWS. He's probably going to be their main ruckman now. Mummy will be back up. And stupid for Adelaide, because now they don't have an experienced main ruckman. It wasn't the smartest move from Adelaide, but it's a great get for GWS. And also Ed Langdon from Dockers going to Melbourne. Yeah, he's a very small, fast player, and he's a player that Melbourne actually very need. And he's a very underrated player. So what's your opinion on this, Kiz?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Very good player. Very good players. Yeah, that's all I've got to say for them. But the two, in my opinion, one of the biggest trades coming up, Tim Kelly from Geelong traded to West Coast. That was massive, back to his hometown of Perth. And also Josh Bruce, a massive one as well, to the Bulldogs from St Kilda. yeah, very good players.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. Tim Kelly, I think he's one of the only players to have more Brownlow votes in games. So that just tells you something about Tim Kelly. And yeah, Josh Bruce, he's going to fit in well with the Bulldogs forward line with Aaron Norton. So yeah, they're both great gets for those two teams. And now two that I've got here is Zach Smith, coming from Geelong to Gold Coast again. Geelong, they don't really play a ruckman, and they've already got Reece Stanley, so I agree kicking out Zach Smith. And Gold Coast need a backup ruckman. They've got Jared Witts, but it's always nice to have someone as backup. And James Aish, Collingwood player. I was devastated to hear when he left, going to the Dockers. But if I'm being honest, this is probably one of the most useless trades I've ever seen. No teams are going to benefit from this. Dockers didn't, and Collingwood didn't. So, useless trade. What do you think about that, Kiz?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Aish was a bit of a waste in my opinion. Not bad player, but just not too good, if you know what I mean. Next,
Yep.
I have got Alex Keith from Adelaide, again, to the Bulldogs. Very good player, underrated backman. Yeah, very good player. And I've got another couple points to say. Eddie Betts from Carlton to Adelaide, back to Carlton. Yeah, what's going on there, Eddie? What are you bloody doing, mate? What are you on about? But yeah, hopefully Carlton gets some good use out of him again. And also, Port Adelaide and Richmond did not receive any votes, or picks, or trades. But yeah, back to you, Josh.
Yeah, a bit interesting. I know Richmond won the premiership last year. Still would have liked to get some new players into the squad. They got a couple of handy draft picks though that we'll get on to maybe in a later video. Like the video. Sam Frost I'm up to now. Great get for Hawthorn. Obviously coming from Melbourne. Yeah, so he's going to be a really good player for Hawthorn. Very speedy backman and very underrated in my opinion. But we also got Jonathan Patton going to Hawthorn as well.
Wow.
From GWS. And Patton has missed out on a lot of footy. So hopefully he can make a great return and play some consistent games. But in his first game, he only got 33 fantasy points. So maybe he's not going to fit well into the Hawthorn culture. And another thing to add on top of that is Collingwood and Essendon were quite quiet in this draft, in this trade period, only receiving the one player. And West Coast coming out on top, as well as St Kilda, getting players like Tim Kelly, Paddy Ryder, Dougal Howard. So I'll leave the outro out to Kiz. There you go, mate.
Thank you, Joshy. Also, I just got one more point to add. Bulldogs are also big winners in this trade. Thanks, guys, for watching the podcast. And thanks to Josh again.
Yeah, the boys.
Yeah, the boys. Up the boys. The podcast team signing out. Peace.
Bye.